In this video, I want to have a little talk with everybody about some things relating to photography that I think are really important. Some of these things I've said in the videos in the last week or two, but I think it's important to bring some of these thoughts together because I think they're really important. The reason I do this show, just in case you guys didn't know, the reason that I keep doing this and I produce all these videos is because there are things about photography that really excite me. I remember the first time I took a class and learned how to develop film and learned how to make a print and how exciting that was. I mean, that was like magic happening. I couldn't believe it. And I remember that feeling. Years later, I took a workshop with my friend Frank Lopez, who I've done videos on this show before, and he does wet plate collodion process. And I took one of his workshops and I remember learning how to do wet plate. The first time I did that, I remember just how exciting that was. That again was magic. Watching that final image come up on the plate, and even then the varnishing and all. I mean, it was just this special thing, and that was something that got me really excited and really charged up. You know, I've got countless books in the living room in there on the shelf of the greatest photographers that our world and our culture has offered. And I get excited with that. I excited when I look at work that's been created by the best of the best. That is exciting to me. When I go to a show, like the Irving Penn show, or when I went to see the Vivian Mayer show, and you see the best of the best there, and the work is presented, and that inspires me and gets me excited. And so one of the things that I try to do with this show is to inspire you and get you excited as well. And I cover a lot of different topics on here. We've talked this week about cameras, but we've also we've mourned the passing of 3 of the great photographers who have left us. We've talked about the philosophy of photography. I did a video that got a lot of attention called No One Cares About Your Photography. And yeah, that title was designed to get your attention, and the whole point of that conversation was designed to get people's attention, but it was also designed to inspire people, because the message in that video was, you know, here's what you're stacked up against, but don't let that stop you. Get out there and create meaningful work. Create work that means something. And people are like, well, meaningful work. And I don't mean you need to go create the Mona Lisa every time you put the camera to your eye, but give a damn. You know, get in there and do something that with the intent of creating something that means something. And that's important. And so that's why I do this show, is to inspire people. You know, photography, I believe, in many ways is a gift. And I know that if you're watching the show, chances are you're a photographer. But I also know that there are people who watch the show that aren't necessarily a photographer, but they love photography. I know people who watch the show who are other creatives, like musicians. Whether you're a musician, a dancer, an actor, a singer, an artist, a painter, sculptor, a writer, whatever that is. We all have this gift of being able to make something. And that is an amazing thing. And to me, and I've said this before, that gift in many ways, I think, represents human freedom, is what it is. It's something that you can do, that you can express yourself through that. Maybe you can create something that's just beautiful, that maybe makes somebody's day. There is so much power in the image. You know, we've seen this historically. Paul Strand was big into image as creating social awareness and promoting change. Images are very powerful, and whatever art that you're into, that you are able to make something, that is such an important gift and an important personal freedom that you're lucky to have. I'm lucky to have it, and I think it's important to keep sight on those things. It's just really important. You know, one thing I said in the video I did on Fan Ho, and I also, you guys don't know this, but a friend of my family's passed away, who was an illustrator, artist. He was a friend of my dad's. I knew him my entire life. And my father couldn't be there, and I was asked to read the eulogy. And I said the same thing in that eulogy, because I think there's certain people who just personify this. And when you look at how our mortality is defined, and I said this in the video I did on Fan Ho, mortality is defined by 2 things, I believe. 1, how we treat other people. And 2, the work that we leave behind. That's what defines who we are. And the first one is the most important, how we treat other people. That one is essential. And the second one is also important, because that's how people view us. So for instance, Bill Cunningham, who passed away in the last couple weeks. You remember Bill as, you know, I didn't know him personally, but I've read all these wonderful stories that people like talk about what a sweet guy he was and how amazing he was as a person. He was kind of this quirky guy, and there's a great story. The movie tells you that. And then you look at this body of work. I mean, you look at the countless week after week after week after week of this fashion editorial column that he did for the New York Times. That's amazing. Most people don't have a photo published in the New York Times, let alone a column that comes out every week. And it included not just his photography, but his ability to talk about it. That's the work he left behind, and that is his legacy. And everybody has their own legacy. Everybody is going to be a little bit different. And I think these are important things to remember, and they're just important things to consider. And this isn't a groundbreaking talk that I'm having with you, and you're probably wondering why I'm even having it. But I think these are important to remember from time to time. The main reason that I wanted to have this chat today is this. I had something different planned for today. And yesterday when I was finishing work for the day and starting to kind of shut down in the afternoon, I turned on the news like I always do and started to watch tragedy unfold yet once again. This time at a Bastille Day celebration in Nice, where a individual decided to drive a truck loaded with explosives into a crowd of people. And at the time of recording this, I just checked, the death toll is at 84. And wow. I live in Dallas. I did a video on this, and exactly a week ago, my city was struck with tragedy when 5 police officers were murdered. I decided not to do a show that day. I don't like to talk politics on this show because this isn't a political show. But I felt that it was important to say something to remember the individuals impacted by that situation. I was very impacted by the Dallas situation. A lot of feelings that week, a lot of them very confusing, trying to make sense out of something that's not going to make sense. Especially when you live in a city and all of a sudden you start seeing the funeral announcements happening and things like that. And it's very tough. And so I feel for people in France right now. And I certainly know how hard it is, and 84 is way too big, and I mean it's just, the whole thing is awful. And I think it's also important, and I want to say this too, these feel like very turbulent times that we're living in, and when tragedy strikes in the Europe and the US, it is widely reported in the media. There are places in the world where tragedy like this is a way of day-to-day life, and I think that's important to remember too. These are turbulent times. It's hard to know what to do. It's hard to know the answers to things. And I know I'm cramming this in with a photography subject, but my point is, I think it's important to stop and remember these things and pay respects to the people involved. They're very painful things to deal with. That's important. But equally important is when we've done that, is to not let it kill our spirit and not let it kill what drives us to get up in the morning and do things. And if you're a photographer, whether you spend 10 hours a day, 7 days a week doing it, or whether you have a family and a job and a lot of other things that get in the way and you only have 1 hour on the weekend, it doesn't matter. That is a gift that you have, and it's important to be respectful of things but not let it break us. I think that is the important thing moving forward. These are kind of some random thoughts, I know, but I just, we've had a lot of fun on this show in the last couple weeks and covered a lot of things, and once again we are at a day where I think just having fun on here and talking about gear and stuff was not important. So that's all I wanted to say. If you have an opinion, of course, you're welcome to leave a comment. As always, please keep it civil and not political. And that's all I have for today. Until the next video, I'll see you guys then. Later.